Hello, Internet Land. Welcome to Boss Key TV. This is your host, Anselmo. And on today's episode of Random Games with Random Names, we're going to be talking about Chrono Cross for the PlayStation 1. Now, this is kind of a controversial game in the Japanese role-playing circles. I can see why, but there's no need to be afraid of this game. Now, this game, if you do not know, is a sequel to the highly praised Super Nintendo RPG Chrono Trigger. This was a long-awaited game. Long. When did this game come out? 2000? Maybe at about a 6-7 year wait. It doesn't really feel very long, but it felt like a long time back then. So yes, the game itself takes place about 20 years after Chrono Trigger. Spoilers, it doesn't have a lot of the returning characters from Chrono Trigger, so don't expect a direct sequel, because this is not a direct sequel. This is its own timeline of events, its own characters. There are a few reoccurring characters, mind you. I won't tell you who those are. I don't want to spoil anything for you. But there are reoccurring Chrono Trigger characters. They're just few and far between. A lot of new characters. The basics of the game. It's a Japanese role-playing game. What else can you really say about it? Again, when you're not talking with NPCs, reading dialogue, watching cutscenes, you are engaging in turn-based combat. Now, this one does have a interesting skew on traditional turn-based, which we'll touch on that later. I think about it covers the basics. Let's start with graphics. Graphics of the game are great. They're lush, detailed backgrounds. Character models are good. Back then, this and Final Fantasy IX were about the pinnacle of PlayStation 1 technology in terms of graphical capabilities for me. They're both just gorgeous games. So much detail in the rendered backgrounds, because they didn't do pre-rendered. They used to do pre-rendered backgrounds, like Final Fantasy 7 and even 8 had pre-rendered, but these were like rendered in-game most of the time backgrounds. They're gorgeous. The aesthetic of the game has a real I can't explain the real aesthetic of this game. It's kind of like it has like an Islander overarching aesthetic, you know what I mean? I don't really know else how to explain it. But I mean, you start in this tiny little beachfront village, and that kind of tone carries with the rest of the game. It's really nice. The graphics are great. They have FMV cutscenes, with CGI character models. Those are kind of sparsely put around. There's no voice acting or anything. Sound, music, and voice. Now, sound. Wow. Sound effects are good. They're good. The music, on the other hand, music is fucking amazing. Pardon my French. So good. Again, by Yasunori Mitsuda, the man who did most of the original Chrono Trigger soundtrack, and Xenogears and other fantastic work. He's a great composer. The music has a real tribal, Celtic thing going on. I love it. It's a really good soundtrack. It fooled me for years and years. I thought the soundtrack, most of the soundtrack was done by live instruments, but apparently they're MIDI tracks. Could have fooled me because the music quality, just a straight up objective quality of the soundtracks are fantastic. It sounds like live music played by real instruments. There, again, like I said, there's no voice work in this game, which is good. I'm glad. It didn't really belong in this game. Story and narrative is where this game definitely divides people. It's a very polarizing game, definitely when it comes to the story. Like I said before, this is a sequel 20 years after Chrono Trigger, which if you haven't played Chrono Trigger, you should stop this video. Stop this video, go play Chrono Trigger. Are they gone? Okay. I don't want to spoil anything. Takes 20 years after Chrono Trigger. Now, how Chrono Trigger deals with time travel and the effects of time travel and utilizing time travel to save the world, this one utilizes not travel through time, but travel through space, not on a linear line, but travel through dimensions of space. Yeah, I know. This game gets kind of crazy. But yeah, it starts, you're a young boy in a fishing village. And one day you're like, I'm going to make I'm going to go collect some shells to make a necklace for my girlfriend. And you go to the beach and you collect shells. And then when you're on the beach, you have this moderately deep conversation with your girlfriend. She's not really your girlfriend, but whatever. About fate and how life would have happened if things would have happened differently in the past. And then suddenly you have this vision of a wave of water coming at you. And then suddenly you wake up and everything seems fine. She's gone. You're on the beach. And you walk back to your village and nobody recognizes you. You walk around. A lot of people say that you remind them of someone. You go back to your house. Your mom's not there. And you find your way to the graveyard eventually. And then you see your gravestone. Apparently you died 9 years prior in this dimension. And it just unravels from there. It's a great concept. Like, I don't know. It's just a great concept. It gets more and more crazy as it goes along. Some body swapping. Spoiler alert. Some dimensional travel. So like the basic mechanic is like you switching back in between these two worlds, these two dimensions of the same world. It's great. It's kind of how like in Chrono Trigger where you would go back in time and do something and that would affect later. In this game, you would go to another dimension, do something, and it would somehow affect the other dimension. Checks and balances. Really cool. Now, for gameplay, the gameplay and the user interface. The gameplay is really fun. I really like the gameplay in this game. I think a lot of people don't, which I've read on the internet. A lot of people don't like the combat system in this game, which I get it, I guess. But I don't know what they were expecting, or I guess they were expecting Chrono Trigger. Duh. It makes sense that they would want Chrono Trigger, but they're not getting Chrono Trigger. They're getting Chrono Cross. Battle system, basic turn-based, not ATB, but turn-based. Every character has their own turn. And kind of like in the same vein of Xenogears, there's you're given a amount of stamina that each character can use per turn, per round. Now you have 3 attacks that you can choose from. You got light, medium, heavy. Light, medium, heavy. They take off the respective amounts of stamina, but they each have a different risk of missing. So, like, you use a light attack, has a higher chance of hitting, but you're going to do less damage. By if you do a heavy attack, you have a higher chance of missing, but if you connect, you're going to do more damage. And you have to, micromanage stamina to use attacks and magic and stuff. And magic isn't you don't have an MP system. You have they're almost like items. Magic is kind of like items, kind of like Final Fantasy VIII, except playable. The draw system, I love it, but clunky. So magic are items that you equip, and you can use once per battle. And you set them up in this kind of grid. So you'd have all your magic set up, and you can use as much as you want or can, depending on how much stamina you have per battle. Once the battle's over, it replenishes, and you can use it in the next battle. Leveling up is a little different in this game. Leveling up is not... You don't get experience points in this game. There's no experience points in this Japanese RPG, which is kind of weird. You level up when the story permits, or when an event happens, or when something important happens, when you beat a boss. Kind of interesting. And the stats that you do level up, or that do level up every time you level up, are based on what you did up until that point. Kind of like Final Fantasy II is kind of a reflective. Final Fantasy II or Elder Scrolls, where it's very reflective. Not as much as those, but like if you use physical attacks a lot before you leveled up, then your attack would go up. If you used magic attacks a lot before you leveled up, then your magic attack is going to go up. If you got attacked a lot by magic, magic defense is going to go up, etc., etc., etc. So very good. Now, you can have up to 3 people per party at a time, but there are a lot of characters in this game. A lot. I never got them all. I don't remember the exact number, but up to 100 characters you can find and recruit and play as that have their own special attacks. Most of them have their own backstory. Some of them have their own side quests. It's pretty cool. Now, the user interface is nice. I could do without some of the choices they made on the menu. Some of it just doesn't make any sense. But other than that, I never get lost. Maybe when I first started playing it, I got lost. But you get used to it eventually. Now, fun factor in the replayability of this game. The replayability is extremely high. This is one thing they did carry over from Chrono Trigger, the New Game Plus system, which I think Chrono Trigger pretty much invented the modern New Game Plus system. Personally, every game should have a New Game Plus feature. Fact. But this game in particular, because you have to basically play the game multiple times to get all of those extra playable characters, it's great. It's just like Chrono Trigger. You beat the game, you can start again, but at this point you can beat the final boss super early, or pretty much any other time that you want within the storyline. And then also in this game, you have the ability to fast forward time and slow down time. I don't know why you'd want to slow down time. Just like see a cool move in slow-mo. And you get speed up time, which is super helpful when you just want to get through monotonous fights, which is nice, because if you're in a New Game Plus, you're like, I've done this before. I've done it before. Hurry up. But on this game, you can press R1, and it kind of speeds it up about 2.5x or something, which is awesome. And of course, like any other New Game Plus, your level and your magic and items, I think, carry over. And all the key items carry over. So yeah, it's really, really awesome replayability. I probably played through this game on New Game Plus probably like 5 times. It's fun. So in conclusion, If you're expecting Chrono Trigger 2, don't, because it's not what you're going to get. It's not what you're going to get. It's just not. There'll be moments in the story where if you are a Chrono Trigger fan, you'll be like, aha! I remember that. But most of the time, you'll be introduced to hundreds and hundreds of new characters. This does take place on, I forgot the continent, but it's the continent south of the continent from Chrono Trigger. So it's a whole new world. I think it's the country that the continent in Chrono Trigger we're having that war with in the south. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. So don't expect Chrono Trigger 2. If you don't, then you probably will enjoy this game. It's very quirky, especially with the battle system and the leveling system. The character models are kind of anime-ish, but I mean, it's Japanese RPG. If you're not used to that, then you probably shouldn't play Japanese role-playing games. Yeah, if you like Squaresoft, and if you like Chrono, or if this sounds cool, pick it up. If it doesn't, I don't know what to tell you. Don't. So that ends today's episode of Random Games with Random Names.